Welcome back and good afternoon, everyone. I hope everyone was able to take a quick little lunch break. For those that are just joining us today for the first time, my name is Brianna Calder, and I'm the Corporate Project and Event Coordinator with BSoft, and I will be your host for the rest of the afternoon. Right now, we've got David McCall here from Tyson Foods, so welcome, David. He's going to be talking a little bit about ensuring manufacturing safety with AI. So with that said, David, you could go ahead and introduce yourself and take it away.
Great, thanks, Brianna. Thanks for having me out today virtually. I'm based out of Northwest Arkansas. I want to thank Conrad for the invitation today, as this is definitely an exciting space that if you guys stay close to IT, you know that it's getting faster and cheaper all the time, which is part of why it's intriguing for me. So a little bit about myself. I've been with Tyson for 13 years, and my team supports several BUs. So for example, if you think about some of your favorite products that you go out to fast food restaurants to eat, maybe your McDonald's selects, your Wendy's spicy chicken nuggets, your Chick-fil-A nuggets, all three of those products are actually manufactured out of 3 different business units. And you may think that all chickens are treated the same, but they're not. So our team supports each one of those business units to manage getting the right size of chicken to the right plant at the right time. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in the future. Some of my experience has been in the business intelligence space. There are a couple of projects that were just massive from an IT perspective that we've completed at Tyson in the past couple of years, where we have implemented huge ERP systems, and just recently for the past 24 months, really starting to take a good hard look at how machine learning and AI can help us do our jobs better. One of the things I wanted to highlight, it wasn't me specifically, but my team and others, we use artificial intelligence to basically predict when chickens will reach a certain weight. And that's extremely important when it comes to making sure that we do have the right bird at the right place at the right time. So think about some of those favorite products that you have. Our customers and the places you go to eat have very high standards for their products, which is great, rightfully so. I expect that as a customer to those locations, which translates to us to make sure that we've got the high quality product and the high quality raw materials coming in at the right time at the right place. So we still have that in place today. It's pretty exciting to see and know that we can place chickens out in a house and know when they're going to be harvested and pulled in at the right time to hit the right weight to be able to serve our customers in the best possible way. So it's one little insight as to how we use AI today at Tyson. You can go ahead and advance to the next slide there, Brianna. Thank you. So talk about why safety is so important in the manufacturing world today. I think it goes without saying that any place where we manufacture goods or put things together where equipment is needed, safety is key and important. I think you all expect that if you are commuting to work at this point, that your car operates safely and that you get there safely, and that you're able to come home in the same manner you went to work. That's the same for Tyson Foods as well. We're not 100% automated with robotics, and therefore we need people, and we need to make sure that our team members are safe. A couple things to mention as well on AI today and how we process poultry, just to make sure that I don't kind of step outside of the bounds of NDA. You guys may be familiar with some of the things that were released in Wall Street Journal, where we are using artificial intelligence and machine learning and vision tools. One article I think came out just recently about using robots for what we call deboning chicken. So I invite you and encourage you to go read that article to get you a feel for what that looks like with AI and trying to actually mimic what a human does when it comes down to actually taking knives and cutting chicken and harvesting for certain parts. And then I'll talk a little bit about the processing plant of the future. So as AI and machine learning and automation continues to get cheaper, there's a vision of what the plant of the future looks like. And if we as Tyson Food wants to compete and maintain a competitive advantage with our brethren in the industry, we need to continually be looking for opportunities to introduce machine learning and artificial intelligence. I can advance to the next slide, please. Perfect. And can't imagine that we'd go through a whole presentation from Tyson Foods without talking about chicken, and in this case, why would the chicken cross the road? So in this case, this bird, this chicken, probably has a good chance of surviving. Obviously, there are no cars on the road, but I'll dig into this a little bit further as I go on through these slides to talk through how we operate as a food company and why team member safety is so important. So next one there, a little bit about Tyson Foods, who we are. So we talk about team member safety. We have a lot of team members. We're just a big company. It's labor intensive. It's manual work to harvest our chickens. It's manual work to process and produce products that you're familiar with in the Jimmy Dean's brand space, the Hillshire brand space. And with that, we need to make sure, again, that our team members are safe. So just some metrics around the size of Tyson and what we've done, at least in the past year, in the way of sales, about 42 billion. We are a global company, over 70 manufacturing facilities. We have sales offices all over the globe. We have manufacturing facilities in what we call our APNEA region, Asia Pacific, Middle East, and for sure our biggest footprint is in the US. And just a call out there, for every 5 pounds of protein that's produced in the US, Tyson accounts for, is responsible for producing about 20% or 1 pound. And then even for me, some of these numbers are staggering just to see what we process every week. So from a beef standpoint, 155,000 head, pork, 461,000, chickens, a little bit over 45 million head processed per week, and prepared foods, we produce about 76 million pounds of product. So if you stop and think about the area of the business that my team supports, is poultry operations, a complex of which we have 62. A complex involves a feed mill, it involves a hatchery, it involves a production facility. And you can imagine a production facility that's processing, say, 1 million birds a week, how many moving parts there are, how many processes there are, and how much labor is needed, and how much labor is needed around dangerous equipment, which is what I'll drill into here in a little bit. So with that in mind, we'll move on to the next one. Perfect. So back to why that chicken was going to cross the road. From this standpoint, knowing the Tyson principles, he's probably got a good chance of making a getaway, because we focus on team member safety first, and then animal well-being second, food safety, compliance, quality, service, and cost in that order. So like I said, we want to make sure that our team members are able to come to work and operate in a safe environment, and then go home in the condition they came in to work in. So you can see some of the OSHA numbers. I captured these right off of our sustainability website. This is all public information. So you can see that when it comes to occupational safety health recordables, injuries are number 1 on the list. And so that's what we target as our number 1 principle, is team member safety. I can personally vouch for the meetings that I sit in every week. Leadership always starts with team member safety, and making sure that we are on our goal of incident reductions or below our goal. And if there's ever a case where something occurs that we didn't plan to happen, and there is, God forbid, an injury, that we share out the best practices and how we're going to resolve and prevent that from ever happening again across the enterprise. So we do take team member safety very seriously. So again, that chicken probably has a good chance of crossing the road, just because we're focused number 1 on team member safety. So AI, as it pertains to manufacturing in our space, you think about us being a vertically integrated company, like I mentioned, with the feed mills and the hatcheries. And over on the prepared food side, we've got to think about how are we going to take in our sales forecast and volume forecast to be able to, on the fly, kind of adjust what raw materials we need to pull in from our ingredients and packaging to make sure that we're going to fill orders successfully, and then deliver that product with enough shelf life that the customer demands. So there's that whole kind of other space around planning and future looking, forward looking, and doing things very efficiently, that is ripe with opportunity for AI. And then what I'll focus on here today is around the use cases for AI with, or as it pertains to safety. And I think what I'll do is I'll talk about these use cases, and I'll give an opportunity, just a couple of seconds in there, to let people get the chance to go ahead and type in some questions if you got questions here. And Brianna, if you want to read those back to me as you see those come through.
Sure.
So the first use case in using AI in our manufacturing space is around really COVID and team member temperature monitoring. And I'll just say too, if there's an invitation, if you guys want to reach out to me afterwards, there are some things I can't say without an NDA in place. So read between the lines, if you will. But these are use cases that are of high interest for Tyson Foods. So team member safety, returning home in the same way that they came in, part of that is making sure that they're not exposed to any additional risks where we can help, right? So you think about COVID, one of the things that is imperative is that we make sure our team members are safe. So we've done a lot, and you've seen it in the press, about making sure proper PPE is in place, that you've got plexiglass dividers and there's social distancing in place. But we also want to make sure that we can use tools that help us kind of get out ahead of that. So think about, as team members are coming into the plant and badging in or clocking in, there's opportunity to use artificial intelligence to recognize, for example, me, that I'm coming into the building again. And by the way, David's temperature today is slightly elevated. In the past 3 days, his temperature was not elevated. So I can send that alert out immediately, either to myself or to management, to let people know that there's some anomaly in play right now, and that maybe I shouldn't come into the building completely because there's something different. So that's one way that vision and machine learning and thermal imaging could be used to make sure our team members are safe. The
We did
next
have
one.
a couple questions if you wanted to go for some right now.
Sure, let's do that.
One says, how has the pandemic affected Tyson, and how has AI helped you recover?
Great, yep. Yes.
Big question.
Big question, yeah. Affecting us, I'd say the biggest hit that we've seen from COVID-19 is absenteeism. But if you remember in some of the press releases early on, we want to make sure that our team members, even if they're showing some symptoms but haven't tested positive, that we give them the opportunity to stay home and social distance and quarantine for enough time to let whatever that is that they've got kind of play through. So early on, we relaxed our attendance policies to make sure that if people were sick, or in certain cases they did not feel safe to come into a manufacturing facility, that they have the option to stay home with paid leave, in a sense. So with that, absenteeism, that causes some, or presents some challenges for us. So if you think about some of those pictures you see there that are examples, there are a lot of pieces of big machinery, equipment that's moving constantly, that what we like to call it is we need to make sure that's running in control. So we don't ever want to let our processes run out of control. And again, I can attest personally to meetings I've been in where leadership said, we're going to make this decision to make sure that we don't run out of control, so our team member safety is not compromised. So from a Tyson perspective, we've seen, I can say, cases where we've had to slow the lines down. We don't process as many birds, which means there's an effect potentially that we're not going to fill orders like we thought we would be able to. So certain customers may have been what we call shorted, where they say, for example, ordered 1,000 cases, we may have only been able to fulfill 750 of those. So those are kind of some high level examples of what we're experiencing from a COVID impact perspective.
Cool. Okay, let's see. We do have three more. I'll ask one and we could save the other two for the Q&A at the end.
Sure.
One, would you say AI makes for a safer food chain, and how? It seems computers watching our food may be of concern. Will they miss things that humans catch?
Good question. I would say I'd almost flip it. So I've seen studies, I've heard studies and results about the ability for humans to pay attention. So think about somebody, I'll take myself for example. If I am stationed on a line where I need to be watching product right before it's being packaged, and I'm one of the final QA checks, and from a visual standpoint, it's my job to look for, say, foreign material. I can guarantee you if it is Friday afternoon before a long weekend, my head's probably not going to be where it should be in the game and focused 100%. That's just human nature. So there is a lot of opportunity from a vision AI standpoint to utilize anomaly detection, where we feed it tens of thousands of pictures to say, this is what good product looks like that doesn't have any foreign material, for example. And when you see something different, we get an alarm or potentially stop the process to make sure that that does not get out into the food supply.
Yeah, definitely understandable. I know I wouldn't be able to focus as well. All right, we have more questions, but I will save them for the end. So you can continue with your use cases.
Perfect. All right, next one is dynamic geofencing. So I put a picture of forklifts down there. So this particular use case is around, again, team member safety, but static geofencing, I would say you're typically going to put equipment in one spot looking over in an area that you're going to be watching for, say, two bounding boxes that may collide, so a person and a forklift. Dynamic geofencing may be a little bit different, where we can watch for different things or watch for things from a different perspective, where say we want to mount the vision on a vehicle that's moving and watch for somebody, where you're kind of not looking at a static area. It's a little bit different flavor of the problem, but again, it's still a vision system using artificial intelligence to basically look for a scenario and then send an alert. Static geofencing, kind of similar, but it may be something along the lines of the robot picture that I've got set down there, where for whatever reason, if you're not able to have an enclosure or fencing to prevent somebody to enter a hazardous area, we may be able to digitally draw a geofence, and if somebody crosses that plane or penetrates that area, that we would immediately send out an alert and let somebody know that there's a problem, and or de-energize the actual equipment to prevent some sort of a continual hazard after that point. And then the next one, predictive maintenance on equipment. So think about IoT sensors and machine learning. Depending on the type of manufacturing business you might be familiar with or work in, you might start with a program where you say, something similar to maintaining your car, right? Every 3,000 miles or 5,000 miles, I'm going to change the oil no matter what. Or some people may do that differently and say, I'm going to change the oil on my car every 3 months, no matter how much I use it. We have some similar type processes we can follow in our manufacturing space. What some of the challenges that come with that are, we don't know if we're basically putting new parts and replacing equipment unnecessarily, if we don't know the true mean time between failure, or we may catch it just a little too late. And for example, maybe a piece of equipment is starting to deteriorate. That could become foreign material that we don't want in our product. So the use case we're looking at here is something around keeping an eye on basically, let's say, the heartbeat of the equipment that we want to monitor. And as we see anomalies around If it's electronic equipment, amperage pole or temperature changes, that's an indication there's a problem that needs to be addressed immediately, or some sort of imminent failure that could be prevented. So using all this data kind of feeding in and building models off of that to understand what good looks like and then what that anomaly looks like against the good, it gives us a little bit of a head start down from the forward-looking scheduled maintenance to real time, and then eventually back into the future predictive nature of AI. So I'll pause there and see if anybody's got any questions.
I think I still have the same three if you want to save them for the end or if you want to get them done right now. So,
let's go ahead and take a question.
all right, let's see. How does AI help Tyson improve animal well-being specifically?
Good question. Yep. So again, I'd say just read between the lines. But if you wanted to talk and we could get some non-disclosure agreements in place, think about AI from an animal well-being perspective, to know if birds or flocks are getting sick before a person could determine that or see that. So if we can see what a healthy bird or a chicken looks like, and we can train a model to understand that when you see this, this is good, but then also train a model to say, when you see this, this is bad. Say, for example, the field techs for a farm go out maybe once a day just to check on the flock. They may leave, for example, at say 5 p.m., and maybe they're not scheduled to go back to that house until the next day at 5 p.m. But if we have some sort of an AI vision system in place, and for whatever reason the flock started to, say, go downhill at 6 p.m., it could catch that then versus 20 some odd hours later. So they're, again, ripe with opportunity for how we can use AI in preventing catastrophic events, especially like in the animal well-being scenario that you just mentioned there.
All right, perfect. And another one, I'm a small manufacturer around 50 million. How can I affordably add AI and where would I start?
It's a good question. One of the things that I was talking to Conrad about was just the cost and the speed and how great the opportunity is right now because the cost is coming down so much. So I'd say two things on that. You got to keep your eyes open for what technology is out there today. Stay close and maybe build some relationships with some of the big partners out there, the AWSs of the world, the Googles of the world. Stay plugged into the AI consortium to understand what's on the forefront, what's coming right now. And then, likely 6 months, 12 months, it's going to be more affordable than it is now. But I would also say too, what we've seen is we're still in, I'd say, a transition for making sure our business understands what the technical capabilities are for this type of technology. And I say that to mean that you can't necessarily go from where every company is probably at today if you're not fully automated or using AI and ML and jump right into I'm fully automated using AI, ML, and all this awesome technology that's potentially very expensive. If you can get just to the next step that may enable you to get to the next level after that, and the next phase after that, and the next phase after that, is going to pay off in dividends. To take advantage of the fact that computers essentially do what you tell them to do and do it very well is a great place to be right now. So I'd say just take that next step. And some of this equipment and the technology out there is highly affordable, and especially when you look at cloud technology and compute and inference. The beauty of that is that you only pay for what you use. So there's not a massive outlay of capital up front. And if you do it the right way, you're really just paying for what you use and can be quite effective. So good question.
Perfect. And then we got one more here. What is Tyson's AI implementation timeline and how is adoption being perceived?
Good question. Yep. So I'd say in certain areas we're using it already. When you look at one of the Wall Street Journal examples that was published a while back, just a different flavor of AI. We're using vision to recognize products to help us manage our inventory in certain locations of plants where we take out, in a sense, some of the human error. And that has all kinds of positive implications around costs that we pass on to our customer, that sort of thing. So in many places we're there, we're using it, we're deploying it. And some other places of the company we're looking at some areas that haven't had AI just yet. But I'd say from a leadership perspective, our CEO, Dean Banks, came from Google X, so he's definitely a fan of technology. And our CTO and Dean, our CEO, are constantly pushing us and challenging us to implement more and more in this space, because they understand what the capabilities are and how it can help us leapfrog into doing things better.
Perfect. And that is all the questions we have for now. If you want to just continue on with your, looks like last slide here.
Yep, perfect. So there's that chicken again. There's probably not a lot of cars out on the road there, so he'll make it across, I'm sure. But again, yeah, just wanted to, the key takeaway there is that team member safety is first for us. And like I said, it's paramount. So we want to make sure that our team members leave just as safe as they were when they went into the office. And that's why we're part of using this this awesome set of tools that's available today that just it wasn't around 20 years ago. So we're on a journey, and obviously we're not going to be fully automated or in using artificial intelligence everywhere we possibly can by next month, but it is a journey. And one thing I wanted to say too, Tyson's a huge company. We had a former CEO that said, we're a great big company, and then we're a great big company. The 141,000 team members all over the US, all over the globe. Again, we want to make sure that our team members can come home to their families and be safe in their job, which is why I talked about what I talked about today and why we continue to move forward in that space. And yeah, just reiterate again, our 7 principles: the team member safety is first, and then animal well-being, and then on down the list there. So I really appreciate the opportunity to speak today and the invitation from Conrad. And welcome to continue the dialogue and any questions that anybody may have. I think my contact information is available too for LinkedIn and everything.
It'll be on the next slide as well. And we did have another question just come in for you. How does AI look in 5 years, in your opinion?
I'm excited about it. I hope we are using it everywhere we can, because I would imagine, you think about Moore's Law, I feel like we're moving faster than that in the AI space. So I hope 2 things. I hope we're using it everywhere we possibly can at Tyson, from our vertically integrated businesses where we have to plan out quarters in advance as to how many chickens we're going to place in houses to fulfill demand, to how we forecast, how we keep our team members safe. Yeah, and I hope too that the second part of that is that it's so kind of ingrained in our everyday and part of our daily work that nobody even realizes how much AI is really helping them do their job, right? So I was watching some of your video here before, seeing the robots and that sort of thing. I think people have an idea of what artificial intelligence is. And don't get me wrong, you see Honda have built those robots where they can talk and walk around and stuff. But I feel like people need to constantly be made aware of this type of application of how AI and machine learning can really help us out. So I hope we're using it everywhere we possibly can. And I hope that it's just kind of so sublime, so to speak, that they don't even realize how much it's helping out, but it is helping us keep our team members safe and helping us do our jobs better every day.
All right, well, perfect. I think we are good to go. We didn't have any more questions come in, so thank you. Mentioned here is his contact information if you'd like to reach out to him for any specific questions you might come up with later. And that's all we have for David. So thank you again, David.
Thank you. Have a great day.